Well, and it is very pleasant here in Wake Up Bogota to have with us for this conversation. As I was saying, it can give so many topics and so many issues to solve to one of the experts, perhaps the most recognized and an authority really on the subject. Mr. Sixto Paz, who accompanies us in Wake Up Bogota, welcome.
Good morning.
Welcome. Well, many years researching this topic, I would like to know
44 years
44 years, where did this come from?
and 20 books published.
Here we actually have the ninth.
Yes, there we have the Sanctuary of the Earth, the 20th, which is already here in Colombia, which you can now get.
How did this interest was born when you decided to dedicate your life to this research?
As they say, the fruit does not fall far from the tree. My father was a scientific advisor on aeronautics astronomy for the Peruvian Air Force. In Germany, my father was a personal friend of Hermann Over, the professor of Werner von Braun. So he was always passionate, apart from aeronautics, astronautics, also UFOs. So in the family environment, my brothers and I were born and raised. So my father always taught us to think, not to believe that in a such large universe, the strange thing is not that there can be life outside the earth. The strange thing would be if there was not. Now, if here on earth we find human beings who walk naked, feeding from the trees, like man 100,000 years ago, because, like in the Amazon, in Australia, Africa, and people here in the United States, in Europe, are already traveling in orbital tourism trips. If there are such contrasts, how will it be in the universe?
Good, but let's go back a little bit in time. It really is more or less like in the 70s that maybe a boom begins. You also, as a protagonist, for example, with the Rama Foundation at the time, how, let's say, humanity arrives at that moment to those 70s. When was that great awakening?
Yes, mostly in the 70s. There was a series of waves of UFO sightings, began in various parts of the world. Then my father, because as a result of the news that came out in the newspaper that said that it had been discovered that space was not silence as was believed, but it was a lot of noise that those sounds could be messages from other civilizations wanting to contact their peers. He organizes a lecture. It was given by a doctor from the Lima Police Hospital, a member of the Theosophical Society, a high degree of Freemasonry, an expert scientific in parapsychology. He spoke of telepathy, the possibility of existing beings on other planets whose only merit it would have been to have started before us, that they could be reaching the Earth not only with their spaceships, but also mentally in telepathic way, or astrally, even in dreams. I could be trying some. They could be trying some kind of contact. I was just 18 years old with my father there. I stayed fascinated with what the doctor said in such a way that when I returned home, I told my mother and sister, with whom I had been practicing Hatha Yoga and Mantra Yoga meditation a year before. And it occurred to us to try like playing to receive an extraterrestrial message. I was meditating, and suddenly, in my mind, an image came to me with markedly oblique eyes that looked at me and said compulsively to grab the pencil and paper and write. I opened my eyes and I began to write in a supposed being called Oxalc, who said to come from Ganymede, one of the 9 Jupiter's moons, said he wanted to communicate with us. I laughed. I thought it was my imagination. But my mother and my sister told me that they had felt it the same thing. They had felt the same. So the next day, we repeated the experiment with a group of friends and asked for proof. We were told to go to the desert south of Lima. We went from the day before so as not to be confused with any aerial phenomena, and behind the hills, an object appeared that was placed above us at a height of about 80 meters, which said it came from Ganymede, one of the Jupiter's moon, and they said that they wanted to communicate with us. I laughed. I thought it was my imagination, but my mother and sister told me that they felt the same. So the next day, we repeated the experiment with a group of friends and asked for a test. We were told to go south of Lima to the desert. We went a day before so as not to be confused with any aerial phenomenon. And behind the hills, an appeared that was placed above us at a height of about 80 meters. It was a ceiling of light. It projected a light like a midday. We felt panic, terror, tremendous fear, and we all grasped at that moment, not only me, but they were telling us that we do not go down at this moment because you do not know how to control your emotions. There will be a preparation, a time, and a place. And months later, in that same place, the ship landed, and we saw them go down physically. And the being that came down from the ship measured about 2.5 meters tall. It was a giant with short hair and color, and with a silver gray hair that looked like a Nordic, Scandinavian. And the being that came down from the ship measured about 2.5 meters tall. It was a giant with short hair and color, and with a silver gray hair that looked like a Nordic, Scandinavian. He was not short. It was not also like the movies up here. It was a giant. If we saw him in Europe, of course, very tall. It could be a European, right?
But human features, like the references that we have?
Yes, human features, and he made gestures with his hands. He had a silver suit and a kind of a black pectoral in his chest. And what we understood that he was saying is that he came from a planet called Apu, from the Alpha star of Centaur, at 4.2 light years away from Earth.
But wait, we are going piece by piece. What we captured, he did not speak to you?
No, he made gestures and the communication was mental. That is to say, who did not ever think that he is suddenly at home and hears they're calling him. And you say, Mom, was it you? Were you calling me? And no, but I was thinking about you. Then I heard your voice saying my name very clearly. You start to think a lot about a relative, a friend that you haven't seen for years. You go to the market and find him, and he says, I've been thinking about you. Um, well, I have been trying to locate you for days because I have a problem and I needed to communicate with you. That is called telepathy. We all have it. We have not developed it out of ignorance due to lack of encouragement. Interpol, Scotland Yard, FBI uses psychics to people born with those qualities more than the common people. Powers that they have developed more so than the common people. It brings them together, train them, and uses them to solve criminal cases that cannot be solved in a normal way, or espionage, for example.
Well, like climbing steps, let's go back, because there are many issues. We were talking about the meeting that you had. Wait for me, because you or there are videos. Are there photographs? There are photographs and videos?
Sure. Above all, the most interesting thing is that over this 44 years, 10 times we have invited the press to meetings scheduled in advance. The first journalist who accompanied us was Juan Jose Benitez, the world renowned author in the news of the Trojan Horse book series. He was present in 1974, there in the desert. He saw the ships appear, and that changed his life. The last video that you can find in broad daylight on YouTube, and it is called Impressive UFO Sightings in Teotihuacan, where 55 people from our contact groups, all from Mexico, accompanied me and with important journalists from important radio and television channels from Mexico City. We went to Teotihuacan, to a public place, in the open from 10:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m., and 6 objects appeared in the sky. And the journalist, who until a while ago said, well, Sixto Paz has invited us, he says that something is going to appear, who knows? Then they say, but there were 6 objects, it was incredible, and it's filmed by journalists.
There is no doubt that the sightings are visible. It is not that one can believe that it is an airplane light.
That's right. That's why the sightings in broad daylight. There is another video that you can also find on YouTube called the UFO of Easter Island. We were invited by these beings to Easter Island, one of the most enigmatic places on planet Earth.
How do you always communicate? Telepathically?
Always mentally, but through psychography or automatic writing. Everything that you receive in your mind, you automatically transcribe consciously. This is not spiritism or anything like that. So with all the other people from other groups that have joined, On that occasion, we went to Easter Island, accompanied by a psychiatrist. That is, many people who heard me tell this experience into my group says that me and my group needs a psychiatrist, and urgently. Well, because Dr. Maria Duzuel, advisor to the CEFA of the Commission of Investigation of Anomalous Phenomena of the Chilean Air Force, learned that we were going to Easter Island, which is Chilean territory, even though it is in the Polynesia, and said, Mr. Sixto, could I accompany you? But skeptically. Well, doctor, please do. Many people who consider that we need one urgently. Come on. And being there on Easter Island, I received a message in front of him saying at what time, what day, and in what place of the island they were going to appear. When he saw that we received that message, he must have thought they are worse than I imagined. Then, the day before the contact, we met with the military of the Movavi airport in the town of Hangaroa in the Easter Island. And we told the military, look, tomorrow at the foot of the Poike volcano, next to the Ahu Tongariki, which is a ceremonial platform that has 15 statues standing there, we're going to have a contact. We're going to be attentive to the radar screen, said the military. We went with a psychiatrist. The two objects appeared. We returned to the airport, and the military left the control tower and in front of the psychiatrist said, Mr. Sixto, we congratulate you. It was spectacular. We have recorded it in the radar screen. The psychiatrist said, I no longer can argue that it was mass hysteria or hallucination.
But I did want to investigate a little more about that because you know that, for example, when people talk about drugs that have a placebo effect, that this being a person, they begin to tell you that it will do you good.
That is why verification mechanisms are needed. That is, there's a popular adage says, as you make your bed, so must you lie in it. It would be enough to have invited the press only once and not risked that they will not appear, because nobody's there to make a fool of themselves. That is why we have invited the press 10 times during these 44 years of contact, and they are the videos that are posted on YouTube. They are from the journalists themselves, not from us. There is a video there of Dr. Ana Maria Polo, since she is with us, and she says it was undeniable. We all saw it, and the object appears there.
But you are sometimes supremely famous through YouTube. Well, of course you find the interviews, find some of these images, but I wonder why we say that at an event like those, as a journalist, I tell you where I see myself. With one of those things, because that must be to open newscasts, as we say from the first note, to make covers.
In 1989, we invited the press for the 5th time, and Leticia Callava came from Channel 51 Telemundo Miami, Jose Gray, Channel 23 of Univision, Beatriz Parga of the Miami Herald. A great number of journalists from various media came. It was about 40 journalists from 8 countries. When the object appeared, they told me if this was at least an hour-long documentary that was going to be published worldwide. They called their channels by phone, and when they arrived in Miami, they found that the agency, both channels, Channel 23 of Univision and Channel 51, with the famous Men in Black. 2 black men had received a visit from members of the government, recommending that the news be dealt with the most discreet way possible, that the footage will be delivered to the government for prior review. They were returned cropped as much as possible. They allowed these journalists to spend 3 minutes on a local newscast, despite the fact that they had gotten huge news. It would have been a boom and profitable. They forced them. I reiterate, it is the journalist who filmed it. You cannot be a judge and defendant at the same time. Like, hey, here I come with my film. Yes, but who will trust you? Well, of course. Then if the journalist comes and says, no, I accompanied this man and I filmed it. I filmed him and there is something else.
And here in Colombia, have they done it too?
Here too, the contact groups have done so. Only that we could say Colombian journalists who have accompanied us to the meetings, not yet. So you are invited for the next one. And precisely this Friday, we have a conference at 7 p.m. at night on the subject of everything that has been hidden, the moment of truth. A few months ago, I was there in Las Vegas, Nevada, at the World Congress, and everyone was there. The military already retired, and all are releasing information considered classified. So tonight, from 7 o'clock at the Santo Tomas University in the Evangelic Auditorium, this is in 9th Street, if I remember correctly, because there will be giving this conference with spectacular materials and images.
Sixto, why would governments be interested in hiding this information?
Any knowledge that you have that others don't, it gives you a power and an advantage over the rest. Then, control of information is power. On the other hand, for the military, it does not matter whether they are extraterrestrials or foreigners. At the moment that an identified flying object invades your airspace without you being able to avoid it, it is a national security problem. In front of taxpayers, you are making a fool of yourself because you cannot avoid it. Why are there borders? Why are there military if it is a drainer? In 1999, the Chilean Air Force released a photograph taken by the geostationary satellite, a satellite that has the same rotation speed as the Earth, which is why it is in the same place as always, located permanently. The satellite had photographed in the Patagonia an oval object of 450 kilometers in diameter. Appear that, however, it cannot be perceived from all radars on Earth and everything from the ground. You had to be above it to be able to capture it. Thanks to the fact that the Chilean Air Force took the responsibility for the photo, it was learned that 6 years earlier, in 1993, the Meteosat satellite photographed the same object over the United States, and no one perceived it. That is, imagine what it means to the NORA, the United States Air Control System, since it has cost the taxpayers millions to accept that there is a ship of 450 kilometers in diameter over your territory and cannot even be detected from the ground.
Sixto, do these aliens have good or bad intentions?
If they came with bad intentions, a long time ago they would have destroyed us by now. All those issues about abductions and kidnappings, that is to manipulate people, and it is all part of the information intoxication policy to scare people so that people do not want to get into these topics.
You have mentioned the men in black right now, or if there are light green, we have seen the stories through fiction.
But they're not as nice as Will Smith, no.
But as it is, they are an army that hides information from us.
It was a result of the fact that on July 2nd of 1947, a UFO crashed 120 kilometers from the Roswell Air Base in New Mexico, and the remains of the ship and the crew were taken to the base, from there to Hangar 18th at the Ray-Patterson Air Base in Dayton, Ohio, where there is the control of foreign arms of the United States. Later to the underground of the headquarters of the CIA in Langley, Virginia, and later to the Area 51 in Grumling, Nevada. That the American government creates a commission and the Majestic 12, made up of 6 senior scientists and 6 senior military personnel, to try to take advantage of the UFO technology for the benefit of the United States Armed Forces and do everything possible to hide the information so that no one finds out. Then these people were recruited from the Men in Black, are nothing other than people from the CIA or the FBI or national security who do everything possible to hide information. So there are many people who have been murdered or evidenced that has disappeared or to hide the information.
But let's say one would understand if this happens. For example, in the United States, let's say we take it for granted that we say, and in the United States, that with this force of so many intelligence groups, and in short, they are hiding something. But in a country like ours, that is to say, here in Colombia.
Here in Colombia and the Sierra Nevada of Santa Marta, a UFO crashed in the Columbia, that was the Columbia Roswell. Immediately, the US government helicopters cordoned off the area and took the object away.
When did that happen?
We are already talking about that 20 years ago, and most have not even found out. So you can see they have a way of acting in all countries thanks to the foreign debt. We owe them all money. Now, and then they have freedom action. You owe the bank all your house, your car, and everything. And one day the bank manager comes to your house, sits down to watch television, takes the remote control from your children, and starts seeing, and you say, wait. And your wife says, hey, who's this man? And you say, no, it's the director of the bank. We owe him all the money to him. So, due to vested interest, precisely, if these beings, as a gesture of goodwill, show us where all the large hydrocarbon and mineral deposits are, prices would fall in the international market, because the value of all this is in relation to their scarcity or its difficulty in being able to access it. That if it teaches us alternative energies, that with only a small quartz crystal it extracts the energy of 1,000,000 barrels of oil or 2 nuclear power plants, then there are too many vested interests that these beings are not going to somehow remove the foundations of our society. So now, I don't know, it's like trying to cover the sun with one finger. When the time comes, this will totally transcend. So that is what is happening. The government has already seen how it does to release the information and look as good as possible after more than 60, 70 years in which the evidence has been destroyed and witnesses intimidated. Everything has been done to hide this issue.
Well, not only that which you are mentioning, but there are also a number of theories found on YouTube. For example, they talk about reptilians, which in addition, these theories are always covered as conspiracy theories. And I don't know what and then how a secret society that lives among us, that for example, tell us what you have found is true or not.
Well, in the second half of the 18th century, Adam de Weinsbaum and the male Nathan of Rothschild founded this in Baviera, the so-called sect of the Illuminati, or the Illuminati of Baviera. This group sought to create a kind of secret world government in which they end up being the top of the pyramid and exerting absolute control over the planet. So today, it is part of the elite, both in England, United States, and Europe. It really belongs to this sect, despite the fact that it was said to be dissolved, that disappeared. No, that continued. Now this sect at the service of who it is. 26,000 years ago, of ours, 2 great civilizations arrived here on Earth as guardians and watchmen. Some were the beings of Orion, and other beings of the Pleiades. The head of the Orions was a reptilian-looking being, an anthropomorphized reptile. This, it would be at a certain point that he considered the human beings on Earth were unpredictable, that we could endanger the cosmic order. So he wanted to end us. He wanted to boycott this kind of sociological, anthropological, metaphysical, extraterrestrial experiment that had chosen our planet for a very peculiar. Then the other guardians and vigilantes did not agree. They fought among themselves. And that war, that conflict, that George Lucas style Star Wars is what is mentioned in the Bible as the war of the children of light against the children of the darkness, the angels of war. As mentioned in the Greek mythology as the war of the Titans, which ended up with a group of Greek gods were abandoned in the underworld, in the Tartarus. That is why they speak of the intraterrestrial ones. The Hindu mythology tells us about the war of the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, real Star Wars with spaceships called Vimanas.
So all cultures have that reference?
Everyone knows it, that is, in the collective unconscious of humanity, and it is expressed through myths and legends. That really a tremendous conflict then when a group of reptilian-looking Orions were deported and exiled to Earth for bad behavior. Used to be living thousands of years in their world, they died here and were trapped in our world in another dimension. Now, where were they deported? Well, when one arrives on Easter Island, that is why this book deals with the true history of Easter Island, the sanctuary of the earth, already then in this book, because it is mentioned, for example, that the Rapa Nui elders tell you that a sphere in the form of a gigantic pearl landed inside the Raku volcano, the Moai quarry, bringing the Moko, the lizard men, who were trapped on the island, who were the first inhabitants of the island, and who died before the king Hotumatua arrived between the 3rd and 4th centuries of the Christian era. Then the park rangers of the Rapa Nui National Park realized that there are caverns in the Poike volcano, where they have descended by ropes and where they have found skulls between human and reptile and bones of up to 49 inches femurs. 49 inches. Imagine, gigantic, of these beings. Then it really would be the definite evidence that there have been extraterrestrials that have been exiled on our planet.
But where was that recorded? For example, if there he has also been talking a little about what a spirituality would be like, a little mythology is this other civilization. Where is it written?
Because the earth was chosen by the extraterrestrials. Because here on our planet, life was sown by them. They planted life on our planet millions of years ago. That is why it's not that they look like us. We are the ones who look like them.
We were not a different race that were on a planet, but they sow us here.
Millions of years ago, they sowed life here, as one day we will do exactly the same on other planets. We will accelerate the process of life. Today, all scientists, and every day, they are discovering exoplanets, planets that are in the strip of habitable planets that revolve around other stars. Is being discovered. For example, the Helcher Space Telescope of the European Union has discovered stars that are in the process of formation, launching jets of water equivalent to 100 million times the flow of the Amazon River per second in the process of formation.
But allow me, a scientist like Stephen Hawking, who also died recently, spent his whole life also studying the universe, and he himself said that we were the first because years from maybe even being able to talk about reaching one of its planets, but second, he found one, just an exoplanet, that might look a bit like Earth.
In 2014, NASA released 5 exoplanets that have oceans like the Earth, that have an atmosphere like the Earth, and all this NASA on 2014. And this is one that is 12.6 years away, 12.6 light years away from us. Another one from 22.5 light years away from Earth. The other one is less than about 140 light years away. The other one is 497 light years away. The other one is 1200 light years away. All are habitable, identical to the Earth. Then, on February of 2012, the Hubble Space Telescope discovered 22.5 light years away a planet that is 100% water. Our planet is 75% water. Well, but until years ago, we did not have the technology to verify it. Today, exoplanets are being discovered every day. The astrophysicist that more exoplanets has discovered is Atman Otman, a native of Malaysia, and she is in charge of the United Nations Office of Extraterrestrial Affairs. There are those who say that she is the United Nations ambassador to the aliens. Stephen Hawking, the most brilliant mind of the world. In 2014, this person was interviewed by the Discovery Channel, who naturally communicated through a computer with the only finger he could move because unfortunately he suffered from a left lateral sclerosis that had him immersed in a wheelchair. Well, he said that he was convinced that the extraterrestrials exist. Now, he recommended that we do not or should not try to have contact with them because they could come to invade us or conquer us. Well, how's the human history, huh? The one who is a thief believes that they are all of the same condition. Or we're not thinking that they're going to behave with us how we would behave with them. If they come with bad intentions a long time ago, they would have harmed us already.
Well, you are another amount of theories of situations that we lack nothing else you are.
Naturally, You would have to do a program of these issues and count on my support.
Are they consigned here and today at 7 at night at the Universidad Santo Tomas?
Yes, we will be waiting for you tonight there at the Universidad Santo Tomas in the Evangelic Auditorium from 7 p.m. at night. An extraordinary conference. The moment of truth has arrived.
Thank you for your company and wake up Bogota. We are going to take a break and come back.